This is Matt Phillips reporting to Math Cadre on John Vandewall's Elementary and Middle School Mathematics, Teaching Developmentally, the Profession Development Edition for mathematics coaches and other teacher leaders. I've chosen to appear today incognito because I fear that with things like vlogs and social media, if I put my image out there too much, I run the risk of being attacked and tracked and stalked by a female sex predator. So today I'm going to use a costume of sorts to deliver this particular professional development piece. The main idea in Chapter 3 seems to be teaching through problem solving. It talks about three types of teaching in regards to problem solving. Number one is teaching for problem solving. This is typically the crap that we do most of the time. And it's not real great traditional teaching where we teach them a problem and tell them how to do it, tell them how to do it, tell them how to do it. And it's usually just routine problems. The second type of problem solving is teaching about problem solving. And this is all about how. It's almost like a scientific method of sorts for mathematicians. They would suggest a sort of a four-step process of understanding the problem, devising a plan, carrying out that plan, and then making sure you look back. And they say this is one of the most important parts, is being able to look back. They also, in addition to this particular method, teaching about problem solving, they suggest strategies such as drawing pictures, finding patterns. They like guess and check, which I tend to prefer predict and check, because I don't want kids to think they can just throw random guesses out there. I want them to actually think about their guess and commit to it. Drawing tables, charts, etc. That's a good method of teaching in terms of problem solving, teaching about problem solving. The third method, which is the focus of the chapter, is teaching through problem solving. This type of teaching begins with a problem to solve rather than an algorithm to teach. Just one of the major focuses of this is to focus on the problems, what you give kids to begin with. So you got to begin with problems that begin where students are. You got to think about where they are developmentally. You got to think about where they are in the mathematics, and you got to start with a problem that meets them where they're at. The problems that you choose must be problematic or engaging, and that a problematic or engaging aspect must be based on the math standards that they will learn. Must require justification and explanation as well. So you can't just pick a problem that they can solve and be done with. They've got to be able to justify their answer or explain it. So also it's got to be cognitively demanding. Now he doesn't mention in this book DOKs. He talks about blooms and another particular chart. Really we're just looking for something that's DOK 2 and 3. We're looking for tasks that have multiple entry and exit points. We're also looking for what we would call low floor, high ceiling tasks. So the second piece to teaching through problem solving is discourse. We really want to value discourse, and we can't overemphasize that. We want the discourse to be taking place in each class every day, every student be driven by that. This discourse is obviously going to be driven by the problem and facilitated by the teacher, and not vice versa. So we want to encourage dialogue. We want to note differences and ask them why. So if we see two students who are differing in their opinions or differing in their answers, we don't want to avoid that. We want to address that and get them to justify why they could be different. We really want to avoid giving answers in this discourse phase because once they get the answer, all the thinking stops. We want to get them to ask questions. We want to ask follow-up questions, whether they are right or wrong. So if a student gives you a wrong answer, you don't want to just say, well, that's wrong. You want to be able to say why and have them have some follow-up questions, so to speak. So the important part of discourse is always the questions you ask. They got to be high-level questions. They got to be conceptual questions, not just procedural. We tend to park a lot in procedural questions and just ask them how they did it, instead of the whys and the what were you thinking, trying to dig down a little deeper. You got to ask questions. You got to avoid certain question patterns where you just ask a question, they respond, and you give them feedback. Ask a question, respond, give them feedback. You want to avoid that pattern. You want to get into different kind of patterns so they don't know what's coming. So it gets some kids off the hook. So all of them have to be thinking. So that's one of the strategies you get them to do that is turn and talk. Turn and talk holds them accountable in strategies such as that. And quit telling them they are correct. Because once you tell them they are correct, then they stop thinking, and so does everybody else. You got to make them prove it as a group. If someone gives you an answer, then you want to allow that to be the answer only after they've proved it. One of the third components to teaching through problem solving is writing. And writing leads to discourse, vice versa. Writing is reflective. It's sort of a discussion rehearsal, and it provides them with a lasting record. Now, big reasons for teaching through problem solving. One of those big reasons is equity, which is critical for our population. All students don't have to have the same prerequisite skills when you teach through problem solving. This develops processes, it develops confidence, it gives them context, and context gives them meaning. There's a lot of entry and exit points for all students. There's fewer discipline problems when you teach this way. The formative assessment is easier because we know where they are, because they're talking, we're evaluating their process, we're evaluating whether they're making meaning of it, and we're evaluating the writing and all the responses. We just get way more feedback this way. So some of the frequently asked questions, how can I teach basic skills? Well, research and studies show that we, as the U.S., which we tend to focus on basic skills, we're actually doing worse now than we have been. And the teaching through problem solving has proven to be just as effective than the basic skill focus and the procedural focus. Second frequently asked question, why is it better for them to explain rather than me? I'm not going to answer that question because I think that's kind of well done. It's obviously better for them to explain. Third question frequently asked, when do I find time to cover everything? Well, breaking skills down into smaller parts makes it harder for them to relate them to each other and to make meaning of the bigger ideas. So it's better to focus on big ideas anyway, to develop the thinking, develop the process, develop the discourse, and then let the rest take care of itself. So looking at my time, this is about a 7-minute vlog. I know it was supposed to be 3 minutes, but my chapter was like way long, and this is the best that I could do. Thank you so much. Don't look me up on the internet.